Well, I'm Junor Francis. Welcome to the History of LA Ska one-on-one sessions. Alongside our producer, the great Eric Kohler. Eric, won't you wave to the audience?
Hello
there. They can, right. So this series really and truly aims to preserve and promote ska, rocksteady, vintage reggae scenes in Southern California and beyond through insightful conversations with legends and modern day talent, including those behind the scenes. So whether you listen to the podcast series or watch us on YouTube, we want to say thank you abundantly. On this episode, we welcome two inspiring, talented, and resilient women who go above and beyond to promote and educate the masses about the importance of Jamaican ska, rocksteady music, and the importance also the role that women have played historically and are continuing to play at this particular time through the art of storytelling. We want to welcome Heather Augustyn and Joanna Wallace, and we want to thank you abundantly and sincerely for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
And welcome, Heather. Great to see you again. And Joanna, nice to finally meet you.
No stranger, Heather. Welcome. Yeah. Joanna,
thank you.
No stranger, welcome. Your first time.
Yeah, thanks.
Yes,
thanks
indeed.
for joining us tonight on this.
Re-entry time for Heather.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, it's been a little bit though, so it's good to be back here. I mean, I watch you guys a lot, but it's good to be back here talking to you.
Yes, we're gonna have some fun here. So I'll kick it off. So you two are friends and collaborators, or you have collaborated. Let's talk about how the two of you met and how you've worked together.
Wow. I don't know. How did we meet, Joanna?
I was actually thinking about that earlier, and I don't remember.
So you can make it up.
I don't remember either.
Oh yeah, we had like these conflicting ska gangs, and we just peace and like group girl unity. No, I think I probably fangirled the first time I met Heather, since like I've always wanted to deep dive into what I love, and Heather is one of the authors who knows about these things and writes about these things, and is one of the few women in the field, which to me that means more, since I think women can do things from a different perspective, and having that representation. As we read through the intro of Rude Girls, and tears are just streaming down my face. It is just, I feel like a lot of Rude Girls, especially in the United States, or women into ska, end up meeting each other because it is so small.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the things that I think drew me to ska, the ska scene, and to Joanna too, is that there's like a real camaraderie between the women in the ska movement. Like, we're nice to each other, like people, we like each other, we genuinely like each other. And that's, I think, really refreshing. Like, you would think sometimes, because ska can be kind of boasty and kind of sometimes even a little aggro, and stuff like that. But that's not there when it comes to the relationships of ska fans, and especially ska women. So I think we kind of we boost each other up, and that's definitely Joanna. She's like a huge support and to everyone, and she's a creator herself too. So she knows, she walks the walk. And so even though, we're not musicians, we're still creators. And so we're still kind of part of that whole thing. Yeah. I don't know though. I was thinking about when we met each other. I think we maybe met each other the first time, maybe in Minneapolis, seeing Stranger Cole. And I know you guys just saw him this weekend out in LA, but could that have been the first time? Or maybe it must have been Chicago.
I think the Stranger thing makes sense, because I was so that whole weekend, because they practiced in my house.
Whoa.
And
I didn't know he played
I'm sorry?
I didn't know Stranger played up there.
Yep. Yeah. So it was, I mean, it was just surreal for me to one day open the door and there's Stranger Cole, Patsy Todd, and Phil Chen just.
Wow.
And I'm so that's probably why I don't remember, since I was just so overwhelmed. Patsy is just, Patsy has my heart. And to see her.
You have one up on me. I've never seen Patsy.
Yeah.
Big one. Big one.
She is I adore her.
Yeah.
So this must have been, so this is over 10 years ago, right? This is
Wasn't it like 2016 or something? Something
Yeah.
like that. It wasn't that long ago. It was Brad
Had to
Klein
be-
put something together. It was Carib Fest or something like that.
okay.
But
They-
Patsy was forced to resign from the scene because
Mhm.
having some issues. So
Right.
Yeah, it was
the
before.
fifth
Yeah, it
been
was
before 16.
like a year before that, I think maybe.
Okay. Wow. Wait, and
Yeah.
so Joanna, they rehearsed in your house?
Yeah, with the prize fighters, and
Oh, what an experience.
yeah, like I'm still not over it.
Right? How
Did
can you? Why should
did
you?
you have a chance to converse and talk with Patsy?
Oh yeah, you know, I mean, of course they were like getting down to business and practicing and stuff,
Yeah.
but I was just like fly on the wall, dream come true, and you know, my dog was down there too, just and of course,
Observing
my dog actually really liked reggae and ska and stuff, and so she was just down there hanging out, and
She's a fan dog. I think it's what we call that, fan dog. Mhm.
I'm jealous of you, dog.
yeah, that was a very cool, surreal time.
What an experience.
Yeah, right. So to the both of you, what was the initial introduction to Jamaican music?
Oh my. Okay. So I'll just give mine really quick and then I want to hear Joanna's. So mine was that I was listening to American ska in the 90s. I mean, I listened to it a little bit in the 80s, the two-tone stuff, which we'll talk about later. But in the 90s, I was living in Chicago from like 94 through like 2004. And lots of ska was coming through, fell in love with it, couldn't believe like, you know, post-grunge, where it would just felt yucky. Like I love grunge, but you know, it felt yucky for a while. It just grew on me. And then I went to a ska show. I went to the Toasters, my first show. And I was just like, what is this? Everybody's having fun. Everybody's dancing. Nobody's just sitting there and being all depressed. So that was it. I was hooked. But Jamaican ska, then it was I wanted to find out where the music came from. There wasn't anything written about it. So I was in grad school at the time. I was getting my master's in writing. And so it just kind of became like a class project that turned into a lifelong obsession. So yeah, I just started interviewing people then on micro cassette tapes. And so I still have, well, I've donated all those to an archives now so that anybody can use those and access those. So if anybody would like to, it's at the Archives of African American Music and Culture at Indiana University, because it's music of the diaspora. And so I became, you know, just interviewing like the Scatolites in 96 before a lot of them passed away. And that was, once I heard the Jamaican stuff that came before that was it. Because to me, that's the authenticity.
Yeah.
All kinds of ska, you know, I mean, but the Jamaican stuff is really where it's at to me because of that authenticity, the rawness of the studio, the rawness of the instruments, to hear the little mistakes. Oh my God, I love that. That's what it's all about to me.
What grade did you get on that project?
I graduated with honors, I'll have you know.
Wow, talking about baptism.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah. Yeah.
94 to so it'd be like three decades, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 decades.
Something like that.
Next year.
That's amazing.
Wow.
Yep.
Joanna, what was
But
your?
that's how it is for all of us, though, isn't it? Once you're into ska, that's it. You're it. That's it. Ska for life.
True.
Ah, I'm
Love
learning.
of my life.
I'm learning.
Joanna, what was your baptism?
So I got introduced to ska, but more like, you know, like mid-90s ska first, before I knew what it was. And in kind of passing with that, you know, neighborhood kids playing around, you know, I grew up in Phoenix or outside of Phoenix, and we just had music on all the time, and Skank and Pickle and Fishbone were, I can specifically say those two were on the radio. And as I grew older, you know, that the ska boom kind of happened, and I learned about it. And then when I realized, oh, this is its own genre, it was just like to the moon from there. not to be like sounding Bitcoin, but I just like just blew up. I was obsessed, and I just consumed anything that I could find, anything I could get my hands on. I just went to shows as much as I could. It was just, I was obsessed. And as I kind of ran out of the ska punk stuff, which was easier to find, more accessible, it just didn't resonate with me the same way as when I first got into it. And so I started digging into the other stuff in the ska section, before you could go on the internet and Google things or hear things. And even on like Napster, you type in ska. Like I used to clean houses and I remember one house, I could use their internet. And so I just download a bunch of ska stuff on Napster while I was cleaning, and then burn the CD very quickly and like kind of clean that up too. And that, I think, was the first real like Jamaican stuff I heard. And I remember it was Prince Buster specifically. And I was in 7th or 8th grade around that time. And as I started to learn these names and read liner notes and stuff, it was just like, what else can I learn? And it became, this is kind of a game. How much can I find? And where are these other people? What do they know? And it became this kind of oral history among each other. And we can kind of talk about that with Brigitte later, because things kind of happen.
Sure.
But that hasn't really stopped for me. And the Brigitte project that I got into really revived me in a way that I didn't think I could be. I thought I really knew my stuff about Jamaican music and the culture at that time, but oh my gosh, there's so much I don't know. And I'm going to continue learning. And it's just, it's been nice to be kind of rebaptized, I guess you could say.
Nice. No, that's
Wonderful,
great.
right.
We're gonna dive into that.
So same as though once you get
project.
baptized, my favorite word, you never turn back. Wow.
Never,
Yeah.
never.
So
Yeah.
deep.
So true.
Yeah.
So true. So Heather, Junor interviewed you on our episode 6 of our one-on-one sessions in
Are
December.
you sure?
Yes, in December
Oh.
2020.
Yes, indeed.
At
I remember
we
very
were in the
well.
middle of the pandemic. I
Right,
remember
that was
that.
very frightening. That was
Um,
numbers.
It was number 6.
Number 6.
Early on. Yes. And I just recently listened back to that episode, and it was, I encourage our viewers and listeners to check that out if you've missed it or relive it, because it was a really fun one. Lots of laughing, right? I was sitting off to the side here when it was being done, but
Yeah, sounds about right. Yep.
and lots of great stories by both of you. Heather, you've written 8 books on ska and Jamaican music. We're going to show a few here. This is one of my favorites, right? So this is Songbirds, Pioneering Women in Jamaican Music. Very apropos to this episode here. Junior's going to show one of his favorites, right? Alpha Boys School. What's the
I think I've
Cradle
shown
of
everything.
Jamaican Music? There we go. Yep. And then
And before you move, who is this person? I don't recognize.
That is Lester Sterling. Before he played the saxophone, he was a trumpeter.
right.
Oh,
That's a very early image of Lester Sterling.
Lester.
That's a
Yeah.
good one.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nice. And then this is your latest one we're going to talk about here in just a few minutes, right? So Rude Girls, Women in Two-Tone and One Step Beyond. You also were writer on Pick It Up, Ska in the 90s documentary.
Yeah,
And
that
you
was
are,
fun.
yes, and you are a professor of English at Purdue University Northwest. Is that correct?
That's right.
All right. Some great facts. June?
Mhm. So before we talk about your latest project, which of the previous books took you the longest to complete, and why?
This one.
Why-
Oh,
Why-
And why? I interviewed over 50 women for this book. So I think the number of interviews that, because I kept, like Joanna was saying, like you just like keep chasing things. And that's how I was with this book too. I would just keep discovering somebody else. Like if there were, like say like the Deltones, there's 11 members of women in the Deltones. And I was like, I have to get every last one, like Pokemon, like catch them all. So it was very obsessive. It was during the pandemic too. So I had some more time than I normally do. And so I kind of indulged in that. And so I think as people have been telling me, they're like, wow, that's a really big book. It's like 160,000 words. It came out much bigger than I thought. And it's just because I worked on it for like 3.5 years.
Yeah.
But there aren't that many women on the two-tone label. There are the Body Snatchers, and then there's Pauline Black, and then there are a couple women in like the Friday Club, one I think in the Swinging Cats maybe, but anyway, there aren't that many at all actually on the two-tone label. So I had to, that's what the one step beyond is I had to kind of make things that were two-tone adjacent, kind of, and maybe not as ska as some purists would like. But I wanted to include them for, I hope I make the case of why I include who I include. But it was easy for me to be like, oh, I'm gonna just add this one more. I'm just gonna add one more. And I had to try to contain myself, but that's why I think it took as long as it did. I just kind of went a little crazy.
And aside from this latest book, what other book took you the longest?
The Don Drummond book took the longest. Because there was a lot of fact finding to do with that one. I had to do a lot of digging in archives and how shall I put this? When you put in a request for some paperwork in a government office in Jamaica, time is not necessarily of the essence. They kind of operate on Jamaica time.
Wow.
So I was waiting for, like, it took me 2 years to get Don Drummond's death records, his death certificates. It took me 2 years.
I don't think they wanted to release it from.
No, I don't think they did either. I don't think they
there
did
you
either.
go.
And there's a film of Margarita dancing, which is now on the National Library, and it's now on YouTube. That took me 2 years to find too. So there were things that, people would say, oh, have you seen this? I heard it's here. You hear all these rumors and you hear a lot of myth and you hear, oh, this person said that he was killed this way, whatever. And so every time I would hear something, I would go investigate it and find out. And a lot of times I describe things like a hydra. You cut off one head and 2 grow back. And so it's like you're constantly chasing things and trying to find out if things are true. And I had a lot of dead ends because people didn't want to talk about a lot of the stuff because, he was a murderer, and so he was abusive to Margarita. So that's an ugly story, and also he was not treated well at Bellevue. He was abused at Bellevue. And so knowing that, people don't want to talk.
Killed, right?
What's that?
He was killed.
No, but it depends on
He wasn't even 40 when he died. He just died.
Well, here's the thing. He was given medication that is now banned because it's fatal.
Okay. So they killed him.
So he was killed. You're right, Junior, in a way.
Right.
But it was because of negligence, I believe, is what I've been able to find. The medication that he was given to him to render him make him manageable. He was catatonic anyway, but it rendered him basically like in a zombie-like state. He was given electroshock therapy in its very early days by people who were not trained. I've been to Bellevue twice, and even now today, the parts that I was allowed to go into are absolutely horrifying. Now, this was a while ago. I'm hoping it's better now. When I say a while ago, like it's been like 5 years, I've heard that things have gotten better there, that they have done some renovations, but I can only imagine during the time when psychotherapy was at its infancy, especially in Jamaica, with staff that went on strike because they were not being trained properly, that this was not the best care that he was receiving.
Tragic all around.
And they wanted to kill him as well. There were people who wanted to see him dead.
You're not wrong, Junior. Right. You are not wrong. Because he affiliated with the Rastafari, and he had killed
a woman whose parents were from Uptown.
Right.
And had dead.
Her father was dead at that point, but she still
had in power.
Yeah, no, tragic all around. Joanna, we're going to talk about the really insightful and fascinating documentary in just a minute here. But can you share about your Miss Upsetter Designs and what that's all about and when you started that?
Sure. So I've been an artist for most of my life. That's like another way I contribute to the scene since I'm not really musically talented. So like I've done I mean, you name it. If it needs visual art in the scene, I've done it. Like I've done flyers, I've done posters, I've done banners, I've done websites, CD cases, LPs. Like I've done a lot of that. And Miss Upsetter Design just kind of came out of necessity in a strange way. I figured, why not? I've been doing this my whole life. That's not going to change. May as well have a website. It actually got its start through, I run the largest Star Wars fangirl website and like in the world, which is bonkers. But people wanted pins and merch for that. And so as I started to get those made, I figured it's probably easy. It's time. It's time. I need a website. And so since then I've just been making stuff that I want to make. You know, I'm not one of those people who's pushing really hard to hustle their art and stuff. I'm just kind of doing what I want to do and not just making for the sake of making for the sake of content. So yeah, I've started making some ska stuff and I'm going to be making more Jamaican related stuff. So yeah.
And do you do it by hand or by graphic design by computer or both?
Yeah, so I do a little bit of both, but to get things manufactured in the way that I do, you have to have them a digital format. So, you know, I do a lot of like vector art. You know, I'll sketch out something initially, like, and then take a picture with my phone and kind of use that as like a base for whatever I'm going to make.
So are you at liberty to show us some of the stuff that you work on?
Now
we go from theory to the practical.
So okay, yeah, no. So I mean, here are some of the pins that I made. So the Brigitte stuff got its start kind of with this. So
right, I've seen that.
I had Banbury badges from the 80s and they're plastic and they're very fragile and I wanted to wear them out and I make pins, so I figure, you know, may as well do this. But I wanted to give her like a bit of a cuter face right here. And that was like my first ska pin. I've since done like the Walt trombone, which was on a Rico, and then redid the Beat Girl for kind of this project. That's kind of what started this whole thing. So,
and are those available on your website for purchase?
Yes, they are.
All right. And that website is?
MissUpsetterDesigns.com.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
I think somebody has seen in Mexico using the name Upsetter too.
Yeah, there's Upset Clothing. You know, it's
yes
common Jamaican.
I guess it's a way to honor this. I love to refer to him as the 10th wonder of reggae, Sir Lee Scratch Perry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, man, Lee Perry.
Right.
So Two-Tone and this is for both you, and British ska played a significant influence on American ska. Is that an accurate description?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hello, Joanna.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We. I mean, Americans are really good at taking things and making it their own, and we did that with ska.
That's not true. The land I'm standing on, right? I'm walking on Native Americans' blood and stone, blood and
yeah, right. Well, so yeah, because if you think about, obviously Junor and I are based in Los Angeles, Southern California here, but if you think about some of the bands that came out of LA, whether it's, you know, the Untouchables, the Box Boys, Fishbone, they were heavily influenced at that time by British ska, right? Two-Tone, even before they were influenced by some of the Jamaican ska, right?
Because they have no access to the
Jamaican. Right. And that's
right.
the case, I'm sure, through other parts of the U.S., right?
Yeah, definitely. I know that Bucket from the Toasters, you know, he was an expat from the UK, and that's how he started and when he started. So the New York era came out of that as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so did the Midwest, if I could be so bold. I know that Chuck Wren would probably be the person to speak more to that, but like, you know, like Heavy Manners and things like that, I think in the the 80s, I think they were more influenced by two-tone. I think that American ska as a whole,
including the East
not
Coast.
Jamaican.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because and interestingly enough, even when I lived in New York, there was hardly any no ska band, because Jamaican bands were reggae at the time.
Right.
But even on the radio, you didn't hear much ska, so you had to come through two-tone.
Because you're talking
Right.
about the 70s, right? When you were in New
No,
York.
man, early 70s, yeah.
in New York. Okay.
Very rare.
Yeah.
Most of the radio DJs were commercial.
Sure.
So ska doesn't pay the bills.
Right.
No.
Right. Yeah.
From a realistic point of view. You're gonna play a drum and scatter lights as opposed to one of the commercial songs. You go for the commercial because that's how you pay the bills.
Yeah.
And those were commercial radio stations. And there were so few stations that they didn't have time to go back to the roots, they just play what's contemporary.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, but we've seen some significant changes now, though.
Right.
Mhm.
For sure.
Mhm.
Yes.
So-
yes.
So speaking of two-tone specials, and Terry Hall, who sadly passed towards the latter part of last year, a few days ago was his birthday. He would have been 64. Let's talk about what you feel Terry Hall's contribution and legacy is, and what he left behind.
I mean, where do you even start? I mean,
Right.
where do you even start? A lot of the women that I talked about in my book talk about Terry Hall, and all talk about him fondly. Some of them, like, Chrissy Hind worked with him in the specials, and she sang backup. It's hard for me to even, they were still friends up until his death. They stayed close. That's the kind of guy he was. He was always collaborating. Not like I knew him. I talk like I knew him, but no. But from what they say, he was a collaborator. He was super creative. Always wanted to involve, women and a lot of other people. So I know, like in Fun Boy 3, which should be called Fun Girl 6, by the way, because it was the 3 men, but they were backed up by 6 women who were playing all the instruments, and they were, super talented musicians. And they, said about how easy he was to work with, and about how innovative, and how he was always bringing like fresh ideas, how he was always giving them space so that they could try out something. He would get an idea from seeing a picture of something or hearing something, and then he would seek out, he's the one that wanted the band to be women, because he kind of wanted it to be a reverse of what, a lot of times it is, where, the 3 women are singing in harmony or whatever, like a Motown or something, and backed up by men. He wanted to do this as a reverse concept. So, I think, and then he went on to collaborate after that with like Terry Blair and Anushka, which was like a trio, and they same thing, where he gave a woman kind of her start. She wasn't Anushka Gross. She wasn't like a super talented musician, but he like saw something in her and her style and stuff like that. They kind of nurtured her, kind of continued to give her an opportunity. So I think that, when you would throw that question out, like, what's Terry Hall's legacy? Anybody you ask, you're going to get like a different answer. But I think that, everybody knows that, like, as the front person of the specials, he's the charisma. He's the one that's bringing the energy by not giving energy. He's like, like this. Like, it's weird. It's like there's so much energy from no energy. It's just this.
That cool factor too. Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, come on. So there's all that, but then as a person, and everybody talks about how funny he was, really deadpan funny and all that. But I think, what I really heard from these women is that they're very grateful to him. And they just, some of the women that went on tour with him too, I mean, they just speak with him like he was a real creative force.
Yeah. Joanna, what about what are your thoughts on Terry and the specials and what he's left behind?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the specials really created the look of the ska subculture. And I mean, two-tone as a whole, but the specials especially did. And I feel like Terry Hall's, just like you said, the no emotion, the blasé, but like wittiness, like he still cared. You could you by the lyrical content, you could tell that he still cared, but he wasn't completely like defeated by, you know, topics like war or racism or anything like that. It was just his experience. And I feel like that really set the pathway, the style of ska in this more modern revival, post-revivalist era.
Right.
This type of wit, this type of calling things out, and of course that socio-political commentary that is huge in ska, and I hope that never goes away. There are a lot of silly bands, of course, and I'm not saying they shouldn't be here, but I feel like the political stuff still keeps in line with the Jamaican roots.
True.
Especially.
Yeah, very much so.
He was pretty bold in that way too. Like, you know, he would burn an American flag on TV, you know. I mean,
yeah,
pretty
with all
bold.
All of the memorials of him when he passed, like I chose a Fun Boy 3 song because it is just bam right there. There's no avoiding it. I love.
What song did you pick? Which one?
The more I see, the less I believe.
Oh, nice.
I don't know if that's the title of it, but I'm so bad with titles.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah, I can remember all the lyrics, but not the names.
No, I hear you.
What I find fascinating is that the ordinary, everyday person in LA, a female, he kept in touch with her. I couldn't believe that. They wrote periodically, always replied to her mail.
Wow.
Yeah, I can't believe
Yeah.
that. Kept her in touch with activities. Yeah, that was Terry Hall. It really gained my respect.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really and truly gained everyone respect.
Yeah.
On social media, I think I've not seen, I think maybe Toots, Lee Perry, but everyone had a picture of Terry. Just about everyone.
A lot of people.
Yeah. Not just an English-speaking country, but Latin America too. Yeah, he had fun all over the world.
Very much so.
Did you see there was like a huge scooter rally for his birthday?
I did see
In
that.
Coventry. Massive scooter rally.
Wow.
He was very beloved.
So that's his hometown, right?
Yeah.
Coventry is hometown.
Yeah.
So for both of you, what was that moment when you made the conscious decision to make the leap or the transition, so to speak, from fan to journalist to filmmaker? This is what I'm going to do.
Well, I kind of already talked about mine, so I'll let Joanna go because mine was just
right?
out of necessity a little bit, but yeah.
I didn't plan on it. It just happened. Yeah, so the whole thing started with I was designing this pin. I had plans to design this pin, and I wanted to redo her face and just make her look more like the original woman she was based on. I learned that she was based on Brigitte Bond, so I just started Googling and like looking for like reference pictures, and I came across the photo of her on eBay, like the news clipping photo, and it had a curious blurb on the back, and it was like, oh my god, I have to, like Heather said, it's Hydra. It's just, I have to look into this, and it just kind of was a Pandora's box from there. And it just kept going. And like when I started texting Heather, because she'd mentioned Brigitte in Songbirds,
right?
That's when I was like, okay, this is serious. We gotta do something about this. And I was like, what do I do with this information? I don't know. I never made a video that long. I'd never done. So just kind of, I was learning on the fly, but it was very challenging, but it was very, very fulfilling.
So, was that the photo that had the caption that said that she was born a boy? Is that one?
Yes, the one of her at the the one of her at the Mayfair Hotel.
Right.
With the Rico Prince Buster thing. So
So up until that point, you had a Miss Upsetter designs, but you had really no intention to write a book or do any sort of documentary or anything of that nature.
Well, I haven't written a book. That's not my field. But yeah, I just wanted to make a short, approachable documentary with what I had learned.
But I tell you, you did put a lot of work into the documentary.
Wow.
A lot of facts, a lot
Oh,
of
yeah.
details.
Yeah, it took over my whole life.
Yeah,
Like, I'm not joking.
So from start to finish. So when you started digging to when you completed the 30 minutes, how long a period of time was that?
It was about 6 months and about 2 months to make the video.
Wow.
And like, yeah, write and edit, like editing and finding things that convey the information you found into a visual format is really challenging, but also I feel like really world building. You know, if you're trying to build a narrative, you need to show the world that this character Brigitte lives in. And I wanted to show people like, yeah, London in the 60s, yeah, you think of swinging London, but at that time for Jamaican music and ska and these just kind of non-mainstream things, Soho was cool. Like Soho was, I mean, I had no idea. I knew it was cool, but not as cool as what I found out. Like, holy crap, that place, I mean, you can link Two-Tone back to it just because the integration at like the Flamingo at the so that was some of the first integration in London, and it had to do with Jamaican music. Or Jamaican music was involved, not strictly.
Right. We're gonna dive deeper on your documentary, but just on the subject of taking that leap from a fan to say filmmaker or Heather, obviously to journalist and writer for you. Did you have, either of you have heroes or people that you've looked up to in those fields? Like Heather, did you have writers that you really idolized or that you were fans of, and Joanna, for you, any documentarians or anything of that nature?
Well, I mean, I definitely have writers that I look up to, a lot of writers, and I do a lot of reading, but I don't think that I can write like them. So I look up to them, but I don't try to like emulate them or anything like that, you know? So a lot of people that write oral histories write in a more like a strict oral history way, where they're kind of like, I kind of think of it like where they're like the orchestra conductor. And so they're like telling who to play when and putting it all together so that it makes a nice song. So they don't do any writing, but the whole thing is written, you know? So they're so like, say like Mark Wasserman or like Roger Steffens in the So Much Things to Say in that book. So I like reading those, but I can't write that way myself. So I definitely look up to them, but I don't try to emulate them. But most of the writers that I look to as like writers are not in this genre. It's like Kurt Vonnegut, you know, like that's my kind of writer. And so, yeah, that's just to inform my own kind of skill.
Yeah. Roger was telling us when we interviewed him on this podcast series a few months ago that he had to redo. So he basically was almost finished, I think, with So Much Things to Say, and the publisher wanted it done a different way, so he had to start over with the order of everything. Like Anyways, it was
well, I whatever he had to go through, whatever pain, it worked because I love how that book is organized, where you can just, you know, everybody kind of chimes in on the assassination attempt or whatever. You know, it's really well done.
It flows really well.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Joanna, what anyone that you've particularly looked up to in the film or documentary world?
I mean, one of them is here, Heather. I mean, I look up to her work with the thoroughness and just that dedication. You know, I feel like that, and I'm not trying to kiss your ass, I promise you. Anyone who, like,
no, but sometimes the truth must be told. And
people, I mean, anyone,
especially when people are alive.
That's true.
Well, yes, you never know, but like the passion, the thoroughness, and the speak up, like that is I wasn't gonna do something, and then I'm like, I need to do something, you know. So seeing other women in this scene like Heather putting information out there and being an authority figure in a positive way is
And well respected.
yes, and that's something to strive for me. As far as documentaries go, I didn't want to get too bogged down with influence and stuff. I wanted to be just super straightforward, chronological, easy to follow.
Yep.
And I really love BBC documentaries. I know that they can be a little
No, I agree. Yeah.
I love BBC documentaries. And Burying UK, if you've not seen that channel on YouTube, that's really what I wanted to strive for, because they do stuff for
What
free.
is that now? So I can check.
Say it again.
Burying UK, BEARING UK.
Okay.
They have a series of Jamaican music in the UK that is incredibly informative. And also included, I could send it too. Yeah, no, it's super good, and you know, just really dove into the social context, and I felt like social context was a big part of understanding the story.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really what I looked to as far as like getting cues of how to present things. But other than that, I was just like, let's just make it simple and straightforward, because I'm stressed.
Yeah.
Let's continue with your documentary. On the subject of your documentary, Blue Beat Baby: The Untold Story of Brigitte came out in the fall of 2022. So that's last year, right? You were truly an investigative reporter in every sense of the word. I'm sorry, repeating myself. So when was the Beat Girl logo created, and what does it symbolize?
So she was created in like late 79-ish, 80, and she was a symbol for the beat. Kind of, they wanted something that would look good alongside the Walt Jabsco logo, kind of in that same look, but a woman.
And that's Peter Tosh.
The wall, right?
Yes,
right,
based
right.
on Peter Tosh, right?
Yes. So kind of like a different version.
I have a story about that. We'll come back to it.
And it is interesting that, like, I think up until like the last year or so, a lot of people didn't know that she was also a ska musician. So both Walt and the Beat Girl are based on ska musicians, which I think is pretty cool.
Tell your story.
So the Peter Tosh, we used the Peter Tosh on a Scamania poster that we had. And a young lady contacted me from here in Los Angeles. That's her logo. So I was kind of frightened. So I went silent for a couple of days. And then I said, well, I didn't do this. Let me contact Saya, who I was working with. Said, no, man, this is Peter Tosh. And it's an Englishman do it. Tell her, kiss your ass. Come and claim in Jamaica thing. Is that Peter Tosh? They say, you didn't know that? No, I didn't know. Yeah, tell her, go away.
So somebody wanted to stop you
Yeah,
from...
somebody you know. Yeah. Can't use the logo.
Wow. Yeah, it's the cover of the Wailing Wailers album.
Yeah.
Right. For the Wailing Wailers, yeah.
That's the Wailing Wailers.
I had no idea, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Funny. So I actually talked to Dave Wakeling about it, because he had seen Joanna's documentary, and I wanted to get some comment about it, about like what he thought, like what he thought of, well, I guess, I don't know. I don't want to like do the big review. I mean, like, we know, like, hopefully people have seen your documentary, Joanna, but I'll let you talk more about it. But anyway, but Dave said that when I call him by his first name, like we know each other, please. Mr. Wakeling said that he wanted to create a female, like a animation to go along with the Walt Jabsco, because the guys were being very aggressive at the shows, and so he thought that if the women had like an icon, like somebody that had a certain kind of a dress and a certain kind of style, that that Walt Jabsco now had kind of like a girl, and then the girls would be represented more, that it might kind of like keep things a little calmer at the shows if the guys then had girls to look at or something. I don't know. It's kind of cute. It's a sweet story.
Yeah.
I think his intentions are good. So, but yeah, so he kind of recalled how that happened.
And Joanna,
a lot of teenagers and kids at these shows. I think a lot of Americans forget, because we romanticize like what happened. Yeah, these were kids. They're teenagers. They were fighting, that's what like
Right.
a bunch of teenage boys do. And
Right.
the psychology behind it worked.
It did, didn't it? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Joanna, through the documentary, and we encourage everyone to watch it. What do you want people to know the most about Brigitte?
Ooh. That I don't know what happened, so I could figure out what happened to her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. It's a cliffhanger, so to speak.
Yeah. That's the main thing. But I mean, aside from that, because that is a bit selfish, I'll say. Like I want everyone to know what happened to her, but I really want to know. I'm pretty invested.
Yeah.
But I see her at concerts all the time.
Well, tell her to call me.
In LA, yeah, even this past Saturday night, she was at Stranger Cole show.
You know what? I like to think that if she is still out there, that she's still dancing. She seems like the coolest person. I think the big thing I want people to know is she's trans, and the Beat Girl's based on a real person, a real ska musician, probably the earliest trans ska musician. Also, she's really cool. Like
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. And if we find her, which Joanna, I'm convinced that we will someday. I'm hopeful. I would love to know what she would say about her charisma and her fashion and her style, inspiring so many other women, and just because of this illustration that was made in her likeness. I think it's pretty darn cool that she's an icon that represents women and unity and equality. It's so super cool.
I think that dance with Prince Buster, took the cake.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yes.
It doesn't get Prince Buster was, the most known. Well, no, actually not middle small at the time, because I think it was about that time that My Boy Lollipop came out, right? Yeah, man. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was that time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and some great classic footage in your documentary. Obviously, a lot with Buster.
Much to be proud of.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much so. Yeah.
Yeah. Some of the footage that I found in there, I'm just like flabbergasted. I found.
And where did you find those footages?
I'm sorry?
Where did you find the footage?
There are various archives online, and they aren't indexed on Google. So oftentimes if you Google something, it won't show up. So you have to know, like, Reuters or AP or British Paith or any, those types of places, and know what to look for. But yeah, I think, the Prince Buster dancing moment was huge, because that's what the Beat Girl's based on. That's that moment.
Right.
But I think I also texted Heather immediately, like when I found the footage of outside the Two Eyes coffee shop, there's a poster of her, and that is crucial to the story, because John Waller saw that poster and da 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 da. Yep. So it's just it feels at times almost too perfect. Like all of this stuff that I found on eBay, on these auctions. Yeah. So, I got this photo, and these are real photos. Let's see. I got they just were happening so quickly. That's something else. It's Cavern Club. Sorry, I have like a bunch of stuff.
No, that's all right.
I'm working on like another documentary, so like this is from the Billy Graham incident. But it's
that was fascinating. Yeah,
all of this stuff was just seemingly popping up, right place, right time, and it's just so weird. But I'll take it.
Again, she is right here in Southern California. So what is it, UK or British pronunciation of her name?
So that's a thing. I don't really know.
It is a thing, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it's there's so many different pronunciations of Brigitte, Brigitte, you know, I don't really know. So I just chose the French pronunciation of Brigitte, but I could be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But she wasn't French, right?
She
So
says,
that's too.
yeah.
Heather, chime in. I mean, was she?
No, it's okay. There's just differing stories about where she was born, and you know, we can't really trace that because we don't have the name on the birth certificate. So,
and that's what I've been trying to find.
So approximately how old would she be now? An intelligent guess.
I would say in her 80s. You know, I would say she's probably born around World War II, 1944-ish. But you never know, because the story does get a little slippery as far as her nationality goes.
A year older than Bob.
Yeah.
Right.
Bob.
I love that that's your frame of reference.
So Joanna, what was the London scene like at the time when she danced with Prince Buster, the London music scene?
Oh man, I mean, again, this is probably me being an American or romanticizing it a bit, but it seemed really, yeah. Oh my gosh, it seemed really cool. A lot of the Jamaican scene, from what I know, and Heather, if you probably know more about this than I do, so yeah, I don't want to add to like the false oral history of ska. So I'm you know what I mean? So the scene at that time, a lot of stuff was at the Flamingo Jazz Club, and at the Marquee. And you know, Duke Finn brought in the first sound system to the UK and introduced that. And I think that's really where Jamaican music started to take hold, with the mods at the Flamingo Jazz Club. That's kind of where the subculture began. But it seemed like, you know, you'd party all night. You would dress up, you dance. A lot of places didn't have liquor licenses, but that didn't really stop things or other substances happening. It just seemed like a good party time. I would love to go.
Yeah. Yeah. A little bit.
I think
it was a little seedy.
Yeah, I think Jamaican music, is safe to say that Jamaican music integrated England and literally transformed the landscape. And I can give you two examples. For instance, in England, the times I visited, the buses used to stop around like very early. And so people started doing their own illegal taxiing because there was no way of getting home after party. People started having these rent parties. That was my dad's time now. You can make your rent. We all gather at your house. You have a party
to make money for rent, right?
And so that started. So that started running late night into early morning. And people playing the Jamaican music. And, you know, of course, your neighbors were white. They would come over, and so black and white started integrating. Maybe not so much at work, but come Saturday night when people needed fun and enjoyment. So I think I can safely say that Jamaican music integrated England and open up nightlife that didn't exist, especially shortly after the war. And that's hard to contradict.
Yeah, that's amazing.
London was dead. I mean, London, apart from downtown Soho, you just go to sleep at night very early.
Yeah, and some of those clubs would go till like 6 a.m. Like if I looked at a lot of the lives of strippers and striptease artists and sex workers at that time, and you know they would strip, and then you could go to the Flamingo after your shift and dance from 3 to 6 a.m.
Wow!
Like imagine dancing to Duke Finn around like strippers, and there's Christy Keeler, and there's like I mean, a lot of society went there. I mean, when I look at the associated people in that scene at the time, like Brigitte's rubbing shoulders with like the Rolling Stones and the Beatles and the Who, and you know, just a bunch of other the biggest names of the 1960s. But she's one of those people who didn't get in there. I mean, she's kind of like the Forrest Gump of ska. I mean, she's been everywhere. She's like, except she's cool. Like she's not like in war or anything from what we know. She's not
on a shrimp boat. You're hilarious. So talk a little bit, Joanna, if you could. Sorry to I don't mean to be,
please,
but tell us about the Two Eyes too, because I think that club where she was performing and stuff like that got her kind of her start in recording.
Oh yeah, like the Two Eyes had a history of it was kind of like the birthplace of rock and roll in the UK, UK rock and roll. And a lot of teenagers would hang out there originally for skiffle. That's for people who aren't familiar, it is kind of like an African American based music, kind of DIY, make your own instruments. And those kids loved Black music, and they would try to perform that. That's kind of how the Beatles got their start. They played at the Two Eyes, even though it wasn't kind of their area. A lot of huge stars got their start at the Two Eyes, and it was just kind of like this little coffee shop. They served hot dogs. They they were open like all night. They didn't serve alcohol, and that's where teenagers could go. And that's where they met. And Tom Littlewood would manage these kids, and they would give them names, like these stage names, and that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
If we could go in. But I do speculate that he gave her the Brigitte Bond name, and that she went, when she.
This was like right when James Bond was super popular and Dr. No had come out. And
okay, right.
Yeah.
Right, because her last name, from what is what?
Well, I think it's her stage name. I think we only know her stage names. So like, if you go back to what I think is her earliest time on film, which was Herostratus, she's credited as Brigitte St. John there, but that was like 64-ish or so when she filmed it, and then it came out in 67. So she could have been Brigitte St. John before that was her stage name, and then she went to the Two Eyes, changed it to Bond, and then switched. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was really careful to not get
dance with Prince Buster. Was it spontaneous or it was organized or planned?
The dance with Prince Buster?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it was planned.
I think so too, yeah.
Yeah. They
Because
had
they were both artists. Yeah, and she was an artist on the Blue Beat label at that time too, so I think it was kind of
that explains it. That
and
explains.
Siggy Jackson, who ran or did a lot of stuff for Blue Beat, was there. And
planned to look spontaneous. Right?
Yeah, and like London at that, like celebrities arriving at London airport, later Heathrow, was a thing. Like there's pictures upon pictures of celebrities arriving at Heathrow. And so it kind of seems like they were like, make our own buzz kind of thing, but it's still cool.
And Prince Buster said he brought that hat for the prince.
Yeah, for a young Prince Charles. Yeah, I don't think he ever got it. Yeah. I've never seen Charles wear it, so.
I don't think he was going to give it to him.
So Joanna, since the documentary has been out, it's a two-part question. A, are you happy with the response so far? And B, what's been the most surprising response, or has anyone come out and said that they knew her or they worked with her or that they think they know somebody who knows somebody?
Yeah. I mean, overall, it's been very positive. I was very anxious and stressed out about any possible transphobia. I was really careful about how I told the story because I didn't want to put the trans community in danger. And I also didn't want to potentially, like, if she was alive, what would the impact be on her? So I was very anxious with how it was presented and how it would be received. But I think overall it's been positive. And I'm grateful for the positivity. And I think it also kind of goes to show that the ska scene is a generally accepting and kind place. I mean, I was also worried about like people with beat girl tattoos, especially men, potentially being like not cool about a trans woman being tattooed on them. So, but no, it's been just overwhelmingly positive. There hasn't been any like big positive leads. I have people talking though, and I think that's the most important thing because we're kind of against the clock here as far as finding things out, because people who know things, primary sources, are getting older, and you never know. So
is there anyone else, sorry to interrupt, is there anyone else who was in London at that time when Prince Buster was there who is still around that could be contacted? I'm sorry, I'm sure these are things that you thought of.
Yeah, I mean, I was I don't really use Facebook anymore, but I was using it to be a little creep to people. Like, hello,
I creeped on
person in
people.
London. Yeah. Like so I would find people and say, hey, I think you performed with this person.
Right.
Can you, and they like, no one really has stories. I mean, I have people who
Yeah.
saw her trip and said, yeah, she would get fully nude and yeah, she was crazy, which I'm
Right.
like,
But
love
they,
her.
but they
We
don't
love
know
her.
anything on that. Right. Yeah.
I kind of creeped. I creeped on some people on Facebook. So I talked to a guy who did perform with her in Madrid. And he doesn't know what happened to her, you know, so he wasn't sure. Like the last that he had heard of her was the same times that we had, you know, thought. And then, you know, I had too, like some people checking around, like in, I don't know where that was. It was in, in Berlin. So she had danced in a club in Berlin. And so I contacted, the club was still there. And the owner was like, well, I'm going to check with some of the old, you know, the old people who used to come in and stuff. And I'm still in touch, but nobody had,
Yeah.
you know,
It's like she just kind of, whew, like,
yeah.
Tell you, if
it's
Eric
so
Morgan
close
doesn't
but
have her
elusive.
phone number, she might not be alive. He has everyone's number.
Sure, Derek Morgan does have everyone's number.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's hardly likely that he would actually know her.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
I'm just worried about what happened to her though, frankly, because she was, you know, she was dancing a lot in Madrid. And this was during the time when it was just the end of the Franco regime. And so, and this was during a time when the policies that were still in place were still,
Very fascist.
yeah,
Yeah.
and very, very, you know, I'm just worried that she was sent to a camp, which was, you know,
Dang.
part of you know, the process in the post-Franco era in those days in the 70s, or worse. I don't know. Because I know that I read a lot of things in same with Joanna, we read these things where in the clubs, you know, they had alarms set up so that if the, you know, administration, the government was coming in, they could warn one another, and very quickly convert to a different style of show so that
wow. Okay.
And different clothing and stuff. They'd have like a
Yeah.
switch that would go on
Right.
in the room. So people would change with that. So like
she was
Paco
very,
España, who
yeah.
was like the main draw at a gay club, he would often be cross-dressed. And that was against the law. And so if the light's on or they got a tip that, you know, the authorities are coming, you would have to do a completely different show dressed straight, which wasn't really the appeal. I mean, he was a great singer, but that just shows like anything that was weird, anything that's not heteronormative, anything like even like women speaking up, you could be put in.
It's fascism. What do you expect?
Yes, it is.
Right.
Yeah, it was a fascist dictatorship. But after Franco died, you know, sometimes when those fascist dictatorships start to crumble, they tighten their grip. And that's kind of felt like what happened. So Heather and I talked a lot about like what could have happened to her.
Yeah, because she was bold. She was not a shrinking violet. She wouldn't have like said, okay, well, I'm gonna play by your rules then.
Right. She wouldn't have backed yeah.
No, which is why we respect her. But that also made it very dangerous.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
So Heather, while you have the microphone, your microphone is still on. Your book, Rude Girl, Women in Two Tone and One Step Beyond. Yes, indeed. Plug it right now. Was just released. Why is it important to you to write this book at this particular juncture in our history?
Why isn't it? Yeah, I guess you know, I had just written, you know, about women in Jamaican history. And so I was kind of like in this space, you know, where I was like, man, how come we don't know about these women? How come people don't know about Sonia Pottinger and things like, you know, so I was kind of in that space. And so then you know, this to me was, two-tone was something that I really love this music. And it just never made sense to me that there was such a message of unity between black and white, but not between men and women. That there were, you know, that the body snatchers, sure, yeah, there's 7 or whatever women in the band, but it's an all-girl band, and that's how they were always marketed, as an all-girl band. And so it was like a novelty act. They weren't. They were fantastic. They are fantastic. We know. We love Rhoda. We love all the women in the Body Snatchers. But that's what they had to do, is they had to like just do it for themselves. And, you know, this with outside of like, you know, Pauline Black, there were very few women. And I just thought, this stinks. I want somebody to know about I want to look at this deeper, is what I just, whenever I'm curious about something, it sends me off onto a wild goose chase. Yeah. And so it's very important now, because I think we have more women in ska now, thankfully, but it's because they stand on the shoulders of these giants. You know, I mean, Gwen Stefani wouldn't be, you know, she wouldn't be empowered by this music if she didn't see, you know, Pauline Black and Rhoda Dakar. And Amy Interrupter, same thing. I mean, now she and Rhoda are, you know, they're singing together, and it's because of Rhoda, you know, and it's because they paved the way. So I understand that. And I'm, you know, as a fangirl, those were the women that I look to, you know, Pauline Black, like that's the style I love. I love, you know, I'm not, you know, I'll wear a dress every now and then if I have to, but I love her style. I love her, like, you know, stovepipe pants and her hat, and she's, you know, so I just think these women are cool, and I just wanted to talk about them, and I wanted to talk to them too. I mean, this is my fangirl. This is the way I'm a fangirl. So I'm like, I want to talk to them. I want to call them, and I want to hear their stories. And, you know, I mean, some of them were just jaw-dropping, you know, to hear their stories about how, like, you know, one woman was on TV being interviewed, and she just given birth, and so she's like expressing milk in the middle of the interview, and her shirt sticking to her, and she was absolutely horrified. And I'm like, that's awesome, you know, because it means that you can be in all of these places.
There you go.
Know?
Yes, man.
Yeah. So
yes. Were you met with any kind of rejection along the way? When you,
well, I will say, I mean, Rhoda Dakar was the one person that I wanted to talk to that I wasn't able to. But Junor, you did. So I referenced, and I definitely cited you properly.
I saw that was great.
I cited you properly, but I used your interview with her.
I wouldn't interview her again, though.
Yeah.
No.
What?
I would talk to Lucifer. I would never talk to her.
No. Oh, she was. Well, I'll say there was something that she's, you know, the things that she talked about, I was very interested in. You got her to talk about a lot about her father, about growing up in jazz. Yeah. But I was, unfortunately,
I'm not surprised.
Agree to an interview with me.
I am not surprised.
So sad, because I really, you know, I went and I saw her perform, and I love her, and I love her music. I have her handwritten lyrics on the wall in my office, but I'm a huge fan of hers. So that one was disappointing. So that was the rejection. But no, pretty much everybody else was, and I understand why she did. I just want to say this. I understand why she did, because if you remember from the interview that you did with her, those were not fun days. Those were not good days for her because of X, Y, and Z, because of the relationships and things like that. So I understand that. I respect that. I'm not gonna, you know, press her on that. Right. But most of the other women, yeah, they were very generous. Very. What's that?
Pauline.
Yeah, Pauline. Yep, I've talked to her, I think 2 or 3 times. And she was always just very generous, and her book, I mean, come on, her book is amazing. Black.
I need to read. I need to get through a couple of your books.
Yeah, I'll read hers. Serpent's Tail. It's on the Serpent's Tail, and it's so good. I mean, she doesn't spare anything. You know, she lays it all out there, and I really, really respect her.
Yeah. So you spoke with over 50 women, right? Who were involved in UK ska scene, two-tone and beyond in the 70s and 80s. what surprised you the most? You obviously mentioned the story about the one of the artists being on TV and right, but
I mean,
yeah, what else surprised you throughout all those conversations?
well, one thing that surprised me, I will say, is that I started to hear like common themes. Like people would say, you know, there were a lot of women that were art school students. They came from art school, you know, and so like I would hear it again, I'd be like, oh, there's another art school student, you know, and so those things were kind of like a little bell goes off, and I think, oh, it's because these people are creative, no duh, and they, you know, they like to create things. A lot of the women lived in you know, like Joanna's talking about Soho. That's a lot of the women lived in Soho. They lived in these super cool areas where things were happening. It was like ground zero. And they were living in squats with one another, and they were living like in the same building, like the same unit, the same room as the Sex Pistols and as Joe Strummer and the you know, they were the 101ers at the time and things like that. And they're living there. So like all this awesomeness is happening. And so I'm thinking like, geez, if I were a musician, or if I were somebody that wanted to be a musician, or if I were young again, like that's what I would do, is I would go to the scene of like the heart of it where it's happening, you know, like in New York, it's like CBGB's or Max's, or, you know, you should go to where like the scene is like evolving, you know, like this
You absolutely have to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that was a kind of a revelation. But I mean, some of the stories, of course, are pretty shocking. You know, I included a chapter on Bow Wow Wow.
Yes.
And make a case for why I do. So if you're wondering, like, what? But that one was Annabella Lewin. That woman, I don't know if she fully realizes it. She is sweet. I love her. She is so sweet.
Nice.
But boy, is she a victim. Boy, is she a victim. Malcolm McLaren.
A little bit more specific.
Malcolm McLaren is a predator, you know. I mean, he was the manager of the Sex Pistols and of New York Dolls, and of Adam and the Ants, and then took the Ants and made Bow Wow Wow, and she was 14. She was 14 when he found her, and the stuff that I found was like, wow, he had just, and I say found, I mean like refound. It's not like I like, you know, these were things that like Chris Salowitz and, you know, journalists were writing about in 1981 or 1982. But now in, you know, the perspective of the Me Too movement, I'm finding this in a new way, and it's extremely enlightening of, you know, how, you know, how he, you know, had Vivienne Westwood, who just passed, you know, dressed her, you know, and how he wrote the, you know, like the songs that he had her sing, the bets that he made the rest of the members of the band take to deflower her. I mean, it really is repulsive. So those things were very shocking. But most of the stories were not like that. Most of the stories in the two-tone world, most of the bands that were comprised of men were not solely men because they excluded women. I think it's just that these were who they were with. These were their friends. And so then now I think, like, you talk to like a Dave Wakeling now or something, he's not sexist. He didn't, you know, there weren't women in the band because he was sexist. I think that now what we know is like, it's just that it was kind of a, you know, kind of a sign of the times. I mean, to use a Belle Starr song, it was kind of a sign of the times of what was happening then. And I think that now we know better and we do better, you know, and the men in the bands, you know, had somebody said to them, hey, wait a minute, why don't you have any women? They probably would have done better. You know, it was just that it was the environment.
It's an extension of how the society treats women.
What's that?
It's an extension of how the society has historically.
Exactly. And I'm not making excuses, but you're right. It is. And so it's just a societal
thing. It's not an individual thing. The whole society.
Right.
As a matter of fact, we can look at America as a good example. Women started gaining rights shortly after blacks started getting rights.
Yes. Right. Yeah.
Talking about just yesterday.
Right.
Have we
Yeah.
had a female president in America? I'm drifting, but
Right,
that's
no.
okay.
Right. Well, and you can go back to right Jamaican music, early '60s, and the lack of representation of
And how difficult it
female
was for
artists,
female.
right? Yeah.
Marcia gave example of how Bob Andy had to protect
Yeah.
her.
Wow.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I mean, I guess but the guys wanted to pick her up. She was gorgeous, have a good voice,
Yeah. Still is, must
Yeah.
say.
All
Still
right.
is, yes,
So
yes,
not
the
you.
queen.
Okay, I take back was.
Right,
Still is.
Still going strong. Absolutely.
She's my
Marcia.
favorite.
Yes.
Yep.
So, any other unsung heroines?
Oh gosh, a lot of them, because like, if you would say, to people like, hey, name me some women in the two-tone movement, they'd be like, Pauline Black rode Dakar, and that's
And
it,
the list ends there.
So
Yeah.
they're all unsung as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
They're all unsung, and so like the members of the Deltones, I mean, there were bands that like Holly and the Italians, they went on tour with the two-tone with two-tone, with the Body Snatchers and with the Selector. They're not ska. She's not ska. But that's why they didn't have a very welcome, reception during the two-tone tour, and they eventually left. But I mean, people don't, maybe people have heard of Holly and the Italians, maybe people have played, Tell That Girl to Shut Up. That's the one song that's kind of popular. But do we know her story? No. So, it's just kind of, that's just one example of name any one of the women in the book. But these women are, I mean, some of them are astounding, so some of them, they still, most all of them still dabble in music for personal kind of creativity and expression. But a lot of them, like, Margot Sagoff, who is in Amazula, she is a world-renowned architect. One of the other women, whose name escapes me right now, in Splashdown, she is like in higher education, it's like a vice chancellor or something like that in school in London.
Wow.
I mean, so yeah, these women are impressive. And a lot of the women, like, they're, they have like their own like cafe, or they have a bed and breakfast, or they, there's women of all, I don't want to like hold up this pedestal of what success looks like. These women are all like kind of living their best lives, and they all look back on this period with fondness. That was the thing. I mean, most of them say, I had the best time. I made friends that I still have.
Right.
These women are still my friends. It was such a good time. We had so much fun. That was the thing. They had so much fun.
So,
And so yeah, I think it was important for them creatively, and then who they developed into and who they were able to become. But a lot of them had to leave because of family obligations, becoming parents, becoming, a mother. They can't make any money. I think, Junior, you said it earlier, you said something like, there's no money in ska. And I thought, boy, truer words were never spoken.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I mean, if you look at what I'm really excited. I just got this book last week, but I'm excited to read the number of the bands I had never heard of. So that'll be fascinating to read about. But few of them, from what I can tell, are currently active in music. Right.
It's true.
Yeah.
I mean, some, like, they entered like different, like one of them, Nikki Holland, who was in Fun Boy 3, like, she became more of like a writer, composer.
Right. Yeah.
So she ended up like composing orchestral scores for John Hughes movies. Like, She's Having a Baby and The Great Outdoors. She wrote all the music for that. So, yeah, she's not in a band, but she's not doing too shabby,
No, that's true. It's true.
So it seems to me that there is going to be a need for part 2, because we have.
Oh my God! Please, if I could leap
talk
through
about
this computer.
with contemporary, right? A lot more women, a lot more bands are by
So
female.
you're saying the
He needs a victory lap for
Oh my God, I'm so exhausted right now from writing this book, because I'm not kidding. Like, when I started writing in like July of 2022, and I got finished writing it in about January of 2023. And when I say writing, I mean, like, my family could tell you, like, I don't stop. I don't stop. I take it with me in my bag so that if I go someplace and I'm stuck in the car waiting, I'm working on it. You know, I have, like, in between classes at school, I'm working on it. It is nonstop. So, like, I need to breathe right now.
Yes,
Yeah.
and you should.
Victory lap. Take
Yeah.
your time.
Heather,
Thank you.
we'll give you 4 months to breathe, and then get back. No.
Ugh. It was a lot.
Oh, I
This stuff takes a lot out of you. And when I was researching this, I was like, holy shit, how has Heather
Yeah.
done this so many
Yeah.
times?
Oh.
Oh my God,
and
it is.
the fact that she has 8.
Yeah.
8 books.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, after doing my research, I was just so brain exhausted, like couldn't think in a straight line. I kept saying of like, I just
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
lot, but it's a labor of love.
Massive congratulations to you.
Totally. Totally.
So throughout COVID and even up until now, there seems
Mhm.
to have been a renewed and even increased interest in ska, right? Documentaries,
Yeah.
books, podcasts, and what
Yeah.
have you. There also seems to be, from our observation, and Junor and I have talked about this with some other guests, more female-fronted ska bands from around
Right.
the world. Do you think that that's an accurate
Oh,
observation?
yeah, definitely. Definitely. Like, you know, Interrupters, Cat Bite, Bite Me Bambi. Yeah, absolutely. It's really good to see, you know. I think it's really great, but I bet if you ask them, they were, you know, they will probably name like Pauline Black as an idol.
Yeah.
I can guarantee it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With that more representation, the more that we see ourselves on stage, the more approachable it is for younger girls and women to get into it, and the less challenging it is. I mean, I certainly tried to be in bands, but the sexism definitely kept me away.
Mhm.
And you know, this is also related. It was Millie Simone who took Jamaican music worldwide.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Before,
Jimmy
well,
Cliff.
Whalers were not even right. She played
Right.
Uganda, she played New Zealand, she played Mexico, played New York.
Singapore.
Yeah, oh, among other places, yeah.
And then of course the World's Fair.
Mhm.
They had
Yeah.
Millie Small
Yes,
at the World's Fair, 1964. Yeah. I actually thought about including a chapter on her at the beginning because I do feel like that was the first kind of breath of ska.
Did you
Female.
also interview her?
I did. I have interviewed Millie before she passed away, and I was supposed to interview her again the day after she died. She
my
died
God.
the day before I was going to interview her again. Yeah. Yeah.
You interviewed
Really,
her
really.
Right.
for this book, right?
Right.
And then
Yeah.
you've also, and I think you introduced me to her daughter.
Yes.
On
Kaylee.
email. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we almost
Yeah.
interviewed her, and last minute she declined.
Yeah.
And
Oh.
disappointed. Yeah,
Right.
I was disappointed.
Yeah.
She's an excellent singer.
She is.
Yes.
Yeah, she has an
She
amazing
is.
voice.
Yeah.
She does an amazing voice, and she's so
Yes.
funny. She's so funny too.
Yeah.
Amazing voice.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just thought of one question I do want to ask you on Rude Girls. Since it is some not just two-tone and ska, but some adjacent types.
Yeah.
One, and this is not a criticism by any means, but the slits, was it?
Yeah.
I kind of feel like maybe the slits would have been great to write about.
So they're in there, but they don't have their own chapter.
Oh, all right.
They
And
don't
again,
have their own chapter.
I'm
Yeah.
just diving in. So okay.
Yeah,
Excellent.
no, that's okay. And Junia Best, who wrote the foreword for the book too, she does talk about them as well
Yes,
because
I
she
saw that.
was
Great.
involved with them. But no, the slits definitely there's a section on them.
Amazing. Excellent.
Because one of the members of the Modettes was originally in the slits too, so that's part of the Modettes chapter.
Amazing.
But also, I did not do a whole chapter on them because I think that Vivian Goldman has already done a fine job of covering them in her book on She Punks.
Okay.
And I just didn't think that, you know, that I had any. What I added the ska perspective to how that
Absolutely.
relates, but I couldn't do a better job than
Right. I get
Vivian
it.
did.
And that's-
She's
Yeah. Great
yeah.
point. Great
Yeah.
point. Yes.
Joanne, we won't let you slip into unconsciousness. Let me bring you in. What group are you listening to? Whether these days, contemporary or historical,
Oh,
or
am I
perhaps
listening?
groups? We could make that plural as well.
Yeah. I've been listening to a lot of like cumbia and bossa nova and samba and like Latin music from like early 60s and like jazz. When I got into this documentary and like I wanted to really put myself in the shoes of like a 60s mod kid and what would excite me as a 60s mod kid. And so that has also been kind of a fun like personal musical journey because I've been discovering all of this jazz and stuff. And my partner who is in the prize fighters, his grandfather is a jazz drummer. So like I am asking him like, what about this? What about this? And so yeah, and I mean he played with like Tommy Dorsey before. So like he has that history. So I'm kind of like, hey. But yeah, I've been listening to more of that. I also do hear a lot of the upcoming prize fighters stuff too.
Nice. Yes.
Yeah, I hear a lot of that. There's always ska and reggae playing at my house. Like there's always like old music just pumping. So, and oftentimes like I'll be listening to something and my partner will come in and go, "What is that? That's cool," and vice versa. So, yeah.
The touching on this prize fighters, earlier you mentioned how they backed Stranger Cole and Patsy Dodd. They've also backed some other legends, right?
Norma Fraser.
Oh yeah, Norma, right?
Am I right?
I'm not sure.
Really?
They're based in Chicago or Minneapolis.
Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Oh no,
that's
no.
right,
That
yeah.
so that would not be her.
Right.
But they have backed the Jamaican legends who
Yeah,
played in Chicago.
yes,
Yeah,
right.
quite a few of them.
Some of the shows that Chuck
Yes.
and Darren and them work on, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, Charlie Organer, he stayed
Right.
with us. Yeah, so it's been really cool. We're both huge nerds about it.
I love it.
So Heather, what are you listening to? You're not gonna escape?
You know what? I'm teaching a class on Bob Marley this semester. So today I was just listening to Exodus all day long.
Movement of Jamaica.
You got it. You got it. And I just love how that bass. I mean, I was telling my students, I'm like, you can't play this song in this classroom. You need to play this with like big bass. You need big bass in here. But yeah, so I've been listening to a lot of Bob Marley lately. Trying to listen to it with like new ears, you know, and hear it in a new way. Because a lot of those songs, you know how it is, like Three Little Birds, you hear it and it's on a like a Target commercial or something, and you can't really hear it for the first time and appreciate it that way. So I've been really trying to listen to it with intention like that, to hear it for the first time and to try to pull out all of the different elements of it. Like to just focus, like I'm going to listen to this song now and I'm just going to focus on the bass, or I'm just going to focus on, you know, what is the drum doing here?
Right.
So that's what I've been doing a lot lately.
So in the class that you teach about Bob Marley, are you talking about, you're doing a deep dive on the lyrical content, or
it's the lyrical content? Yeah. So it's called Catch a Fire, the lyrics of Bob Marley. And so what it is it's looking at, like, we did a whole segment on like the history and the culture and politics of Jamaica, and then started analyzing his lyrics and going album by album. And it's accompanied by a book by Kwame Dawes, who is a fantastic Jamaican writer. Actually, I think he's based in the US now. I think maybe like in South Carolina, but he's written this book called Bob Marley Lyrical Genius. And that is because, you know, there are a lot of biographies of Bob Marley. This one is a very analytical, a book that analyzes his lyrics in terms of the history and the culture. And so we just discussed the assassination attempt and the exile, and now we're going into Exodus. And so that's because we're, you know, using this book, this Kwame Dawes book, which is just fantastic.
And so for the benefit of their viewers and listeners and myself, what's the name of the author?
Kwame, so it's Kwame, Dawes, Dawes, and it's called Bob Marley Lyrical Genius.
Well, you know, Heather, you've had a long time to talk about ska during this lesson that you're teaching about Bob Marley, because you can't leave out ska and rocksteady would be incomplete.
Oh my gosh, I spend a lot of time on ska and rocksteady, of course, because that's Bob ska and rocksteady.
Oh, there you go.
Bob ska and rocksteady. Oh yeah, so we talk a lot about that. We talk about, you know, I mean, to talk about like small acts, you've got to talk about the big tree with the big three. So we talk a lot about the, you know, the original sound systems, and yeah, I have to, yeah, I definitely geek out a lot there, and
they didn't have those types of subjects at Cal State Long Beach where I went.
yeah. This is a seminar class, and I say these, I mean, it's an honors students, and they just get into it. Would you be surprised to know that very few of them had ever heard Bob Marley's music?
Oh, no, I'm not surprised. I tell you what, because a friend of mine now is a high school teacher.
Yeah.
And he said he's so sad and disappointed that the kids know nothing. He told me that last semester. They know.
Yeah.
So they
very sad.
So they might have heard of him, but not heard the music.
Not even
exactly.
But even right here in California, well, I mean, metropolitan city, that, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's abroad, and the teacher.
Heather, what's the average age?
Really good question.
These are like 19, 20, 19, 20-year-olds. Yeah.
Okay.
But I will say they all love it. They all really love it.
And then they're gonna tell their friends and family. So speaking of the younger generation, Junior, Saturday night at the El Rey Theater, Stranger Cole, we were outside. This was after doors, and there were a group of
before doors.
A group of 6 or 8 kids.
8.
I literally thought they were just gonna pass by.
Right, so I invited them in.
Junior invited them in, and I thought he's like, they don't know Stranger Cole, but they do.
Yeah, and I got teary. They said, no, we come to see Stranger Cole.
We're talking like 6.
Oh man,
15, 16
it's unbelievable.
I love it.
Yeah, we need more young people in this scene.
Yeah,
we do.
Yeah, we're having a hard time building the scene here, but in Mexico it's growing.
Yeah, all ages are used.
Oh yeah.
I've been doing some posting because the Clarendonians are going to Mexico, so I'm doing a lot of posting online. And what I've discovered, to my amazement, there are quite a few female bands, fronted bands. Well, all female. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Yep.
So that's encouraging. That's encouraging.
It is.
Which was the basis for me saying you have to write, sequel.
I am going to talk to you in about 6 months or to a year. Well, yes. I'm going to put that in the back of my head, but thank you. I will. Yeah. One day.
Heather, you're based where?
I'm about an hour east of Chicago. So I was living in Chicago when a lot of the ska bands were coming in, but I'm a suburb of Chicago, but I'm in Indiana.
Right. Okay.
So were you able to attend some of the concerts that they had there? Because I know Stranger Cole passed, Monty Morris, Derek Morgan, a whole bunch of legends.
I went to all those. Yeah, I went to all those.
Fantastic. All right.
Are you kidding? I would have driven like, well, I wouldn't have gone to LA. That's a little too far, but I would drive to see those guys. Yeah. So, and we'll see Stranger Cole. He's coming to play at Supernova. He's coming to perform at Supernova. So I already have my ticket. Very excited to see him there.
Joanna, you headed out to Supernova?
Oh yeah.
What's that? Oh yeah. You're going? Yeah.
We're
VIP.
We're gonna try. We're gonna do everything we can to make it out there in mid-September.
Please go. I think once you get there, it is just such a amazing feeling of connectivity with the family
reunion.
It is. Oh my God, I can't wait. I've had such a hard year. I can't wait to go.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I mean it's
this is a comeback year for them?
No, last year they came back. Yeah. Yeah, and that's where Root Girl Review
and that was a huge even for me as an adult, seeing that many women perform ska at the same time was, I mean, I just was overwhelmed with just so much emotion. It was
that was very special. And Hepcat, I'm just saying this from the videos and everything I know, but Hepcat did a great job there, and Scatolites, but this year, I mean, big with Bad Manners and Tokyo Ska Paradise Orchestra,
Charlie Cook,
Stranger Cole added,
DJ Don Letts,
Fishbone,
No,
It's going to be huge. It's
Yeah.
the whole spectrum of ska, which I really appreciate that too.
Yeah, I agree.
really
Yeah.
nice
Yeah.
representation.
I get exposed to a lot of new bands there too that,
You wouldn't
which is really
ordinarily
good.
see, right? Mhm.
The first time I saw Catbite was there. They're fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we missed them. They were out here the night before. We had strangers, so we couldn't.
So
make it.
traditional reggae is represented there too, outside of Stranger.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
That?
Yes. Well, I mean, like Tokyo Ska
Well, she's
Paradise.
reggae, man.
They're
Holly's
Oh,
reggae.
a
traditional
big
stuff.
band.
Yes.
Traditional.
Mhm.
Both
Yeah.
like literally and
Fantastic.
figuratively.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
for
no,
both of you,
definitely
your
all
next
that.
project?
Uh,
No, there is no
He's
rest
not-
for the
he's not gonna
weary.
let it- He's not gonna
No rest for the weary.
I don't know. Junior, I don't know.
We're
I
gonna send
don't
you
have
some
anything right at
suggestions.
this moment.
We have some suggestions, Heather, but we'll send you a list.
Okay. Sounds good.
And Joanna, a few suggestions for more documentaries for you as well.
Yeah, I'm
No, talk about, yeah.
Oh yeah. So I am working on something just kind of casually. I feel like Brigitte is still here. I'm still looking, like I'm just doing the really tedious work, like looking through Maltese birth records or family search or
Right.
just stuff like that. And it's the very, very tedious stuff. So I do hope to make a part 2 to this. I have some magazines right here. Heather has seen them. I don't think anyone else really has. And I'm researching that. But again, it's just this inch by inch type of thing. So I hope to make a follow-up for that.
Have you
I've
actually
also-
gone to England or London more specifically to?
I really want to.
You haven't gone yet.
I haven't gone. I would really like to go. I've had some pretty major health issues and surgeries the last 2 years or so. And so I've been in PT and stuff, but I like that as like one of my top priorities. Like once I get my mobility totally back, like one is Supernova. Two is getting over to England, because I would love to go to all the places and just be a big dork in front, like, oh my God, this is where like Two Eyes was, like freaking Americans, I swear. But what I want to work on after that I'm kind of starting, and I have like all of Heather's books like up to the side, like dog-eared and stuff. I really want to dive into how do people just not know what ska is? Like, is it ska has become such a meme? Why? Why do people not know what ska is? And I think a lot of it has to do with marketing, and there's a lot of intersection with like racism and whitewashing and trends and marketing and blah, blah. So it's just kind of piecing this together as, why did ska turn out the way that it does? Why do people think of like Real Big Fish or the Boss Stones rather than the Ska Lights? I'm not trying to like judge harshly, but to just talk
but the
about
fact speaks for itself though. For one, we know that a radio station DJs, program directors did not program the music, because when I was growing up in Jamaica, I was told over and over and over again that Jamaican music was not on a par with American music.
Yeah, no.
And then now I'm beginning to realize that Dan Drummond is, Heather, see him talking, I'm making this statement in front of the right person, that he's one of the greatest who has ever lived. I thought I was just saying that because I'm a nationalist, love Jamaican music. No, the fact that you stated in your book that we haven't seen a greater person because he was taken from us so early.
That's right.
Look, Dan, the Scatterlights, the Wailers, their harmony, it's in a par with other music.
And a number of the Jamaican singers from Rocksteady era, what have you,
just as good as
any American soul singer.
Oh gosh, Ken Booth, Alton Ellis, come on. All day long.
Right.
Well, and I mean,
so the
all of this
program director
incredible
did not program the music. As such, people didn't get to hear it.
Yeah,
Right.
well, and on the BBC, they wouldn't play a lot of Jamaican music.
They
You
didn't.
have this huge Jamaican population, but they
That
won't
was
play.
catastrophically sad. They did play a little bit when I think a female who had ties to Jamaica or of Jamaican extraction worked there. But
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
I mean, they'll play like Millie Small, this kind of like cleaned up, like whiter version of ska, but anything
but the same thing in England too. They were.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like they
Oh, I
wouldn't,
thought you meant
they would play like Millie, but you couldn't get like Scatterlights. it was pop. She went to like an etiquette school and stuff to be more
Wow, yeah.
English,
and used to program one, one of the Scatolites song made it, one or two of a Prince Buster's song, but
yeah,
like a whole series.
Mm.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's good that people like, Duke Reed, they had their own radio show so that they could play, Treasure Isle Time. They could play some of these songs, but a lot of the music was still considered downtown. Those were the downtown musicians. And so, especially if they, during, the early 60s, if they commiserated with the Rastafari, then they really would not get played.
But once it became popular in Jamaica and people like Byron Lee started playing it, it became acceptable. That's why he went, as opposed to the Scatolites, to the World Fair in Europe. Right. People said, no, we can't send Scatolites, so they sent Byron Lee.
Yeah.
So there was some acceptance on that level. And it was so popular in Jamaica, how could you refuse it or reject it? So it was played some on the area, but on the air, but outside of. But you have to give some credit to Chris Blackwell for his work, getting the music on the airwaves in England, and
Catch a Fire. He really did see the potential,
So,
and it's amazing how roots reggae Bob became. I'm just curious, like, why do you think that the roots Bob was accepted? That sound, that rootsy sound was accepted in England, but not so much America. It's because of the West Indian immigration, right? Or what do you think?
I would think so. I mean, he had a really hard time breaking through to the Black American.
Because that's what Bob wanted, but I'm not sure if people wanted that.
I see.
I mean, do you buy, if you're an African American, do you buy Bob Marley or do you buy Stevie Wonder?
Right.
Yeah.
That was the reasoning. And on Stevie Wonder station, do you play my song, because he has a station, or you play Bob Marley?
Right.
Yeah.
But Bob really wanted to reach the African American audience. But I was meant to understand that, Blackwell told him that shouldn't be your focus. You won't go far.
Right.
And was he right or not? I wonder.
He was right.
Yeah.
So, in the Midwest, right, the ska scene, and Joanna talking about is the ska. Do you see, and this is a question for both of you, have you seen crossover and fans who go to see the Scatolites, right, and some of the more traditional and authentic ska? Do those same fans go to see, like, when the Toasters come through town, or when Mustard Plug or what have you?
I feel like at least here in the in like Twin Cities area, and I mean, I haven't been to a show here for a long time, but before COVID, I feel like, Scatolites would bring in a lot of an older crowd, like jazz folks, not really a younger crowd. And I would see like a little bit of crossover, but not necessarily. I feel like in my time when I lived in Arizona, I definitely saw more crossover, but there's a bigger scene there, and a lot, like, I even saw like a ska punk band open for the Scatolites, and that was a little strange, but a bunch of ska punk fans got exposed to the Scatolites, so maybe that was like a life affirming moment for some people, hopefully. But there's not a huge crossover. I'm sure other people disagree with me, but I don't see it.
Heather?
No, I don't disagree with you. I do think that there's some crossover. Like, I mean, I know I'll go to a Scatolites show and a Toaster show all day long, but I think there's some. But like, I don't know if like the more like ska punk stuff, like Mustard Plug, or like if you like say like Big D and the Kids Table, like I don't think you'll get people that like Scatolites like me, like necessarily going to a lot of like the ska punk that is new, because we've already kind of lived through that and like that, and that was the moment for us. It's the moment for them now. and that's great. But like, to me, the authenticity of a band like the Scatolites is something that is not a flash in the pan. Not to say that ska punk is, because look, it's still here, but it just didn't feel filling to me. You know, it wasn't like a big baked potato, you know. So Scatolites are my baked potato.
There you go. Yes.
The original or the one that's around now? Do you go see
The
this?
ska punk that's around now, I think, and even the ones that was, you know, when I go through, and yes, I'm still a CD girl. I still have my, you know, my CDs. Here's, you know, my CDs, and I go through and I see like the ones that I play, the ones that I listen to. It's not, you know, I'm not listening to Voodoo Glow Skulls anymore.
Right. Well, you know,
I love
someone made a point, and it's very relevant. He still buys CD. I tell you why, because the download music where you store it is going to be gone.
Yeah, I know.
Wow. So
Yeah.
the music that you download and you store, where is it?
I know.
You buy a CD. I mean, an album lasts until perpetuity. A CD you can keep for many years, because CD is celebrating, I think, what, 4 decades or 3 decades?
Yeah, I think I remember getting one in like
83, right?
83.
Right. But if it's download, where do you store them? So 20 years from now, you find a download.
And remember that about your photos too, because what you know, remember that the same thing applies to your photos.
Little photos, right?
You know, I know. I
hadn't even thought of that one. Yeah. So we're still encouraging people to buy music.
Yeah,
and
that's how the artists make a living.
Yes, and albums.
Yeah,
but albums are on a comeback now.
Yes.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, they surpassed last year CD sales.
Yeah, I think for a significant number of years now.
Yeah.
In England especially.
Right. Yeah.
So for both of you, any advice for young writers and documentarians who are writing about subculture, sub-genre?
I want to make a documentary, so if you can give me some advice.
Honestly, I want to write a book.
I'll make mine short and sweet, and then we'll get to Joan. But my advice for people who want to write, because I teach, you know, writing is if you want to be a better writer, read, and then write, you know. But read more, because that's how it gets, the patterns are made. And if you want to write about whatever you want to write about, pursue what you're curious about. Pursue your curiosity. That's it.
I love that.
She's done.
I'm done, Joanna.
Like, pursue your curiosity, but like your passion too. I think it shows up for sure. If you're very passionate about something, just keep pushing for it. Don't worry about money. Like, again, if you're in ska and you're watching this and you want to make a documentary or book or whatever, you're not going to make money. Like, just, I'm sorry to crush your dreams, but like, just do it because you love it. And you have so much more fun with it, because you could show it more authentically if you aren't concerned about, you know, the profits. So
true.
Yeah, just be yourself. Like, you have an authentic story to tell. You have a unique experience, so share it.
It can be discouraging though.
Oh
yeah.
No, there's no music.
Oh yeah.
Done? Yeah.
You know, looking at the Stranger Cole show, I'm not even looking in not even speaking retrospectively. I mean, we have some real good musicians out here in Southern California, but you know, after they finish back in Legends or playing, opening, or in the middle order, they have to go up to their 9 to 5. So hard to pay the bill.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's increasingly more and more difficult to live in metropolitan cities such as Los Angeles because of cost of living. And if you live in LA, then you don't get to interact with the legends, you know. So you're caught between a rock and a hard place. And it can really burn you out, can really destroy the moral fiber and reduce you to a state of nothingness.
Yeah, I know. And you know, it's extremely discouraging when you know, you go to, I mean, I remember my first book reading, I went to, you know, it was an event, I went to it and nobody showed up.
Oh.
You know, and these things happen, but you just got to keep doing it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just got to keep doing it. It just
Right.
happens.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's encouraging and inspiring.
Yeah.
Was it poetry reading?
No, it wasn't poetry. It was my ska book, but you know, it's just I was encouraged by, I think it was Kurt Vonnegut who had when I went to his museum, he had a rejection letter there for Slaughterhouse-Five, you know? And so those things do inspire me. So when nobody showed up to my book reading or whatever, I mean, that it was discouraging. I probably cried for a little while, but then I put my big girl pants on, and then that empowered me really, because when somebody tells me like you're not good at this, that makes me want to become better at it. So
And 8 books later.
yeah, right. Yeah.
Known worldwide,
True.
practically every Jamaican, not necessarily prominent, just Jamaicans, just know of Heather. Long as you're in the music.
Really? I don't know about that, but
No, yeah, of course. Mhm.
wow. I don't know, but
They know
You've
you
made
know.
a name for yourself.
I found
like,
my niche. We'll put it that way. It's a little niche, you know. but-
huge contributions to the music and the understanding of music, and you know, just like a base level just entity that's there for people to consume. Because before that, what was there? Like Rough Guide to Reggae, like no offense to that's a great book, or
Yeah.
or you know, Solid Foundation, those are great books, but if you look at any other genre of music, it was underwhelming. What was
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you have added so much to the
Oh,
ska
thank
canon.
you. Well,
I mean,
thank
it's just
you.
true. And even if people don't show up, it's there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well,
It's-
and now they do and will show up.
I hope so.
So
Yeah, I
can we
hope
expect
so.
to see you on the West Coast anytime soon in the book tour?
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't have a book tour, but I don't have any plans to come out there yet, but I'm definitely going to be looking into it. Because
And
I
you
do,
should, because
yeah.
especially Los Angeles, this is really
Yeah.
and truly the I would say Ska headquarters in the United
Oh yeah, you guys
Yeah.
have a really solid scene out there.
Mhm.
Yeah, you
Thanks to
definitely
people
do.
like Eric and those folks who have been
Junior.
building it for
Yeah.
many.
I mean, Western Standard Time Ska Orchestra is one of my all-time favorites. And so every time I see them post something, I definitely take a look at like, what's the airfare to get out there to see them every time. That's my temptation, but yeah, one day.
Yes, indeed. So, anything that both of you want to share that we've not talked about? Obviously, we can go on, and we definitely want you to share where fans can find your work and purchase your books, Heather, and watch documentary. But what else would you like to share before we round this out?
Okay, yeah, so it's skabook.com. You can also get it on Amazon. All my stuff's on Amazon too, but I have lots of blog posts on my website that if you want to just like go and read a lot of like little things that I'll just be curious about, like what's a kukumaka stick, and so I'll go write a blog, check it out and go write, blog about it. So there's lots of content there, but I think one thing, in terms of this show too, like with Joanna, I think one thing that I want people to know is that that there's that what good can come out of, working in collaboration with somebody. Joanna was extremely generous with sharing information. And and I think that we were able to to really kind of dig into the story a little bit more by working together, and it just really felt good and natural to work with her, and we were excited together. I'm totally geeky together. I'm normally kind of a DIY kind of a person, but I guess here this was a DIT, like a do it together kind of, and it felt really good and natural. And so I think that sometimes I just want to say thank you to you too, because you were very generous with this. It's one thing about the ska scene that I noticed a lot of times, like in the 90s, because it is so much part of our identity, there's this kind of like me, like this is mine. And Joanna has never been that way. I've never been that way. And so we just kind of like clicked together, and we were able, I think, to really dig into this story that way. So I just wanted to give big ups to Joanna for that. So
I think it's because we both care about this
Yeah.
stuff so much, and we want to
Yeah.
do it justice
Yeah.
because we love it so much.
Such profound
And I
passion
think also,
in your expression.
Yeah.
huh?
Such profound passion in
Oh.
your expression.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, you know, Heather and I have had the challenges of sexism in this scene, unfortunately. So I think if it were a man who wrote Songbirds, I may not, I don't know. Maybe depends on the person, but I've had a lot of men talk to me as though I'm really stupid. And I'm like, I have been involved in this stuff for decades. Pardon me. So talking to Heather, it's just this mutual understanding, I think, you know, of we care and we want to make things better, not celebrate our own selves and victories in a way.
Yeah.
I think that's a little
Yep.
bit different as far as like, you know, men and women in the scene. There's a lot of braggadocious dudes at times. So, and rude girls just get shit done.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Is it redundant?
Hold on, I like
Is
that line.
Is it redundant to ask if any closing thoughts? Is that a redundant question?
Oh,
I think it is. Rude girls get shit done. I love
yeah.
that. I'm writing that.
I love
As
that.
far as where you could find my stuff, missupsetterdesigns.com. I do have a blog, but there's only one entry on there for now. But it is very long. It says like an 18-minute read, but it is everything as far as Brigitte goes, because I don't want to hold it all to my own. I feel a lot of emotional connection to Brigitte, but if someone else wants to research it, it's all out there. And if you want to dive in, it's there. I'm not holding it to myself.
Mhm.
So if you want to read through that, I do hope that there will be more stuff. I want to write a thing about John Waller. We didn't talk really about him,
Yeah, no, we didn't.
but he is a weird character.
Scumbag alert. Yep.
Huh?
Mhm. Scumbag alert.
Oh, he's the worst. I would text Heather. I'm like, I hate John Waller so much. I was just like so mad at him. Like,
No, those are both
Yeah.
perfect closing
Heather,
thoughts. And
I think the same goes for you, Nick. Parting words.
Yeah, I mean, I like Joanna's where girls get shit done, but yeah, I think this is the time for women. I think it's been time for a little bit, and I think that now we're just finally starting to kind of realize that. So,
yeah,
yeah, so like any little girls out there who see the big girls on the stage, teach yourself to play, pick up the drums, pick up some drumsticks and go for it.
yes, yes. That's I love that. And congratulations and thank you to you both for your contributions and amazing storytellers. And I know how much I can imagine. I don't know. I can imagine how much time and energy and effort and blood, sweat, and tears have gone into everything. So thank you again for being here with us and being our guest and part of this podcast. And Junor, thank you.
Yes.
Until next time, right?
Yes, indeed, sir. We should be shown. We have to compete with these ladies to get the work done.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Our guest,
thank you
Heather.
for taking the time on the platform. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's been our pleasure. Joanna Wallace and Heather Augustyn
Yes.
and Junor Francis.
This series is produced by the Rockery Radio, Eric Kohler. That's his brainchild. Lots of credit to him for his work. In Southern California area, a lot of stuff behind the scene that you can't imagine. And when we speak of no credit, is not credit because it's all behind the scene work.
Well,
But
Junor, thank
so
you for all
really
you do.
truly.
And thank you to all of our viewers and listeners. And we appreciate all the ongoing support. Please subscribe to this podcast series and our YouTube channel. Follow at History of LA Ska on Instagram and join our Facebook group. You can follow this fine gentleman and my good friend Junor Francis at Junor Francis. And until next time, have a wonderful rest of your evening, Joanna and Heather. And
Thanks.
thank you all again. And Junor, take care.
Yes.
Bye-bye now.
Good night, friends.